Good morning, everyone. I'm Ronaldo Dadala, and we are the Group 5, and we are going to report the occupational health and safety. Occupation safety and health means by which to control aspect of work production that involve any degree of risk or danger that may cause injury or harm. This process eliminates such element to ensure employees' safety and health. Sa madaling salita, ang occupational safety and health ay isang plano na nagtutulak upang maiwasan ang pinsala sa isang lugar ng trabaho. For all employees, the reason for occupational health and safety first is eliminates possible danger, second, safeguard employee productivity, third, means to promote workplace processes, fourth, protect employees' right, and fifth, maintain worker health. Mayroon tayong batas na nakailalim sa Republic Act 11-058 o Occupational Safety and Health Standard Act o ang pagtataguyod sa kaligtasan ng mga manggagawa sa kanilang pinagtatrabahuan. Sa batas na ito, may karapatan din ang mga manggagawa na i-report ang anumang mamamataan na work hazard sa trabaho at tumanggi sa trabaho kapag may makikitang matinding panganib. Dapat din may protective gear ang mga trabahador lalo na kung mapanganib sa kanila, kaligtasan o kalusugan ang pinapagawa. Dapat din may safety device at signs sa loob ng pagtatrabahuan. Meron din dapat aniyak Occupational Safety and Health Committee ang kumpanya kung saan mamumuno ang employer o kahit sinong kinatawan nito. Multa at pagkakakulong ang maaaring harapin ng mga mamumuno sa kumpanya kung mapatunayang may paglabag ito sa safety standard na itinakda ng batas. Environmental Health and Safety Compliance. Environment, health, and safety compliance refers to adhering to the rules, regulations, policies, and procedures that are put in place on the worksite to keep workers safe. It means EHS compliance is what your business has to do to stay in line with industry regulations, like Occupational Safety and Health Administration or OSHA, to protect your workers and the public. It's not just a moral obligation, it's also a legal obligation. Businesses who fail to comply are subject to inspection and punitive action as well as public scrutiny. Employer responsibilities to maintain and provide. First, a safe working environment. Second, safe system of work. Third, facilities for the welfare of all workers. Fourth, any information, instruction, training, or supervision needs to ensure worker safety. Responsible for ensuring own personal health and safety and that of others in the workplace. Complying with any reasonable direction given by management relating to health and safety. For example, it's incumbent on you to regularly inspect your workplace and ensure that they're OSHA compliant and hazard free. But you also need to provide the appropriate safety training to your workers, as well as personal protective equipment and safe, well maintained rules. This applies to everything from safety chemical storage to eliminating respiratory hazard to employees' health check to regular equipment maintenance and inspection. EHS regulations to follow. The first step towards successful compliance is to identify the regulations that apply to you. If necessary, assign someone specifically to this task and make sure they understand the legal language.
Occupational hygiene, goals, definition, and general information. According to Berenice I. Ferrari Golzer, work is essential for life, development, and personal fulfillment. Unfortunately, indispensable activities such as food production, extraction of raw materials, manufacturing of goods, energy production and services involve processes, operation, and materials which can lead to a greater or lesser extent that create hazards to the health of workers and those in nearby communities as well as to the general environment. It means that Sa iba't ibang klase ng trabaho, lalo na yung mga trabahong food production, extraction of raw materials, na i-expose sa mga chemicals, ay nakakapag-create ng hazards sa kalusugan ng mga workers, hindi lang sa mga workers kundi sa mga kalapit na communities as well as to the general environment. However, the generation and release of harmful agents in the work environment can be prevented through adequate hazard control interventions, which not only protect workers' health but also limits the damages to the environment often associated with the industrialization. Sa generation natin ngayon, yung mga nakakapag-release ng harmful agents sa work environment ay maiiwasan through adequate hazard control interventions. So ano nga ba ang hazard control interventions? Ito ay yung mga elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and PPE. For elimination or substitution, eliminating the hazard completely is always the first choice. Substitution involves replacing the materials or process with a less hazardous one. And for engineering controls, if you can eliminate the hazards or substitute safer alternatives, engineering controls are the next best options. This involves using work equipment or other means to prevent workers from being exposed to hazards. And engineering controls are physically changes to the workplace and may include equipment guarding, guardrails, traffic control lanes, and barriers between vehicles and pedestrians. Administrative controls involve identifying and implementing safe work procedures so your workers can perform their job duties safely. The findings of the administrative risk assessment will form the basis of these safe work procedures. And for personal protective equipment and clothing, using personal protective equipment or PPE is another important controls to protect workers. While working with toxic chemicals may be necessary in certain workplaces such as laboratories, the use of PPE such as protective eyewear and gloves will help to reduce the exposure to risk. The need for occupational hygiene in the protection of workers' health cannot be overemphasized. Even when feasible, the diagnosis and the cure of an occupational disease will not prevent further occurrences. So, kung mananatiling unhealthy ang work environment, may potential na magkakaroon pa rin ng sakit yung mga workers. Only the control of health hazards can break the vicious circle. So as you can see in figure 1, the interactions between people and the environment, without the preventive component, environment is unhealthy. Kapag unhealthy ang isang environment, makakakuha ng sakit yung tao. Magpapadiagnosis, magpapatreatment, at magpapagaling, at magiging healthy persons. But, babalik siya sa environment niya na unhealthy, magkakakuha pa rin siya ng sakit. Kung ano yung nakuha niyang sakit noon or mas makakakuha pa siya ng ibang sakit, mas malala, at magpapag-doktor at magpapagaling na naman siya. Yung cycle is hindi nababago. But as you can see here with preventive component, ang isang environment is unhealthy. Magkakaroon ng recognition and evaluation of the problem. I-evaluate nila yung problem kung saan ba talaga nagsisimula, kung saan nagkakaroon ng sakit ang isang tao. And next is magkakaroon sila ng preventive control measures at magkakaroon ng isang environment na healthy, which is yung tao is magiging healthy na hindi na sila babalik pa sa cycle na magkakasakit, magpapagaling, at babalik na naman sa environment na unhealthy. So, preventive action ay hindi sinisimulan before na magkaroon ng any health impairment sa isang work environment, but even before exposure actually occurs. So, the work environment should be under continuous surveillance so that the hazardous agents and the factors can be detected and removed or controlled before they can cause any ill effects. So, ayun yung role ng occupational hygiene. Occupational health requires a multidisciplinary approach and involves fundamental disciplines, one of which is occupational hygiene, along with others which include occupational medicine and nursing, ergonomics, and work psychology. So here's the figure 2, the prevention and the treatment. So makikita dito kung ano yung ginagawa ng occupational hygienist sa isang environment at kung ano yung mga actions nila. Ganon din ang mga physicians, yung mga malalaman nila kung ano yung mga effects ng mga disease. So, it is important that the decision makers, managers, and workers themselves, as well as all occupational health professionals, ay naiintindihan ang essential role that occupational hygiene plays in the protection of workers' health and of the environment, as well as the need for specialized professionals in this field. So, overall, occupational hygiene focuses on anticipating, recognizing, evaluating, and controlling health hazards in the work environment.
Trisha Joyce Gamis, third reporter. Occupational hygiene is the science of anticipation, recognition, evaluation, and control of hazard arising in or from the workplace, and which could impair the health and well-being of workers, also taking into account the possible impact on the surrounding communities and the general environment. Definition of occupational hygiene may be presented in different ways, however, they are all essentially the same meaning and aim at the same fundamental goal of protecting and promoting the health and well-being of workers, as well as protecting the general environment through preventive actions in the workplace. Occupational hygiene is all about pagpoprotekta, pagpapanatiling malusog at ligtas ang mga workers na nagagaling sa trabaho or sa lugar ng kanilang trabaho na makakaapekto sa kalusugan at kapakanan ng isang trabahador. For example, like usok, ambon, or alikabok na nakukuha natin sa paligid. Maaari din na itong physical hazard tulad ng noise at vibration, kasama sa trabaho ang pag-aaralan kung ano nga ba yung risk na pwede nating ma-encounter sa araw-araw. Kasi kung hindi natin ito may iwasan, maaaring hindi lang manggagawang maapektuhan, pati na rin yung mga produkto at ang trabaho nila. Occupational hygienist. An occupational hygienist is a professional able to anticipate the health hazard that may result from the work processes, operations, and equipment, and accordingly advise on their planning and design. As occupational hygienists, we are able to identify yung mga hazard na pwedeng manggaling sa work, mga kagamitan, at kung ano-ano pa. Recognize and understand in the work environment the occurrence, real or potential, of chemical, physical, and biological agents and the other stresses and their interactions with other factors, which may affect the health and well-being of workers. Dapat doon natin malaman kung ano yung mga chemical, physical, at biological na nakaka-apekto sa health ng mga workers. Understand the possible routes of agent entry into the human body and the effects that such agents and other factors may be on health. Dapat malaman kung ano yung mga possible hazard na pwedeng makaapekto sa mga workers para masolusyonan agad ito in the future. Assess workers' exposure to the potentially harmful agents and factors and to evaluate the results. So alamin natin kung saan nga ba na-expose na hazard ang mga workers para ma-evaluate natin agad yung result at kung paano ito masasolve. Evaluate workers' processes and methods from the point of view of the possible generation and release propagation of potentially harmful agents and other factors with the view of eliminating exposure or reducing them to acceptable levels. So after natin malaman kung saan nga ba nanggaling at kung alam na natin kung saan ba ito nagsimula, gawa na agad natin ang paraan para maiwasan or mabawasan to. Designed to recommend for adoption and evaluate the effectiveness of control strategies alone or in collaboration with other professionals to ensure effective and economical control. After natin matukoy kung ano nga ba yung pinagmulan, gumawa na tayo ng strategy or Makipagtulungan na tayo sa mga nakakaalam sa pag-alis nito upang mas masigurado na effective yung strategy na ikakandak. Participate in overall risk analysis and management of an agent, process or workplace, and contribute to the establishments of priorities for risk management. So, ayan, i-share din natin yung mga naisip nating strategy or solusyon sa buong organisasyon para lahat sila aware kung paano nga ba ito maiwasan. Understand the legal framework for occupational hygiene practice in their own country. Educate, train, inform, and advise persons at all level in all aspect of hazard communication. So, kailangan natin turuan, ipaalam, at sanayin sa mga workers tungkol sa mga hazard na pwede nating maranasan in the future. Then, work effectively in multidisciplinary team involving other professionals at recognize agents and factors that may have environmental impact and understand the need to integrate occupational hygiene practice with environmental protection. Hindi natin yung mga lugar na pwedeng maapektuhan ng mga hazard para maiwasan din nila at mapangalagaan ang kapaligiran. Occupational hygiene evaluations are carried out as to assess workers' exposure as well as to provide information for the design or to test efficiency of control measure. Evaluation of workers' exposure to occupational hazard such as airborne contaminants, physical and biological agent is covered elsewhere in this chapter. Nevertheless, some general considerations are provided here for better understanding of the field of occupational hygiene. It is important to keep in mind that hazard evaluation is not an end in itself, but it must be considered as part of a broader procedure that starts with realization that a certain agent capable of causing health impairment may be present in the work environment and concludes with the control of this agent so that it will be prevented from causing harm. Hazard evaluation paves the way to but does not replace hazard prevention. Ang occupational hygiene evaluation ay nakakatulong para masuri ang exposure ng mga workers sa hazard na nakukuha sa chemical, biological, at physical. Nakakatulong din ang occupational hygiene evaluation kung paano ito makokontrol or maiiwasan. Take note lang din na hindi porket nagagamitin natin ito ay permanently na mawawala ng ibang klase ng hazard. Nakakatulong lang ito kung paano natin maiiwasan at makokontrol ang hazard para kung sa ganon, ma-maintain natin ang kaligtasan at kalusugan ng bawat manggagawa. Recognition of hazard. Meron tayong tatlong klase ng recognition of hazard, ang chemical, biological, at physical. Chemical, ito yung pumapasok sa katawan natin through inhalation, skin absorption, or ingestion. Biological, ito yung organic dust na nanggagaling sa biological origin katulad ng virus, bacteria, fungi, proteins from animals or substances from plants such as degradation, product of natural fibers. Physical, nakakapekto din ito sa kalusugan at well-being ng isang tao tulad ng noise, vibration, ionizing vibration, and non-ionizing vibration. Workplace characterization, facility, activity, processes, operation, emission sources, agents, rank low to high amounts. The exposure pattern. Ito yung kung gaano tayo kadalas na-expose sa mga hazard, intensity of exposure, and time of exposure. Mahalaga na hindi lang dapat natin ito pinag-aaralan, dapat din natin tignan kung ano ba talaga nangyayari sa lugar sa isang trabaho para maiwasan natin ito at di makaapekto sa mga trabahador. Then risk assessment para ma-identify at ma-analyze natin kung paano maiwasan mga ganitong pangyayari.
Health and safety for staff, facilities, occupational and hygiene laboratories, and equipment planning. Timely and careful planning for the implementation, management, and periodic evaluation of a program is essential to ensure that the objectives and goals are achieved, while making the best use of the available resources. Initially, the following information should be obtained and analyzed. First is nature and magnitude of prevailing hazard in order to establish priorities. Second, legal requirements, legislation, and standards. Third, available resources. And lastly, infrastructure and support services. So, being obtained and analyze the nature and magnitude of prevailing hazard in order to establish priorities is important in health and safety for staff because when the staff has a proper education on it, they know how to avoid and reduce many impacts. Legal and requirements is very important in accordance with regulation governing the safety and health at work. Available resources. So, by simply knowing the ability of resources helps to make intelligent resources and allocation. The planning and organization processes include establishment of the purpose of the program or service, definition of the objectives and the scope of the activities in view of the expected demand and the available resources, allocation of the resources, definition of the organizational structure, profile of the required human resource, and plans of their environment if needed. Clear assignment of the responsibilities to units, teams, and individual. Design adaptation of the facilities, selection of equipment, operational requirements, establish of mechanism for communication within and outside the service, timetable. Planning and organization processes include this because it provides the information top management needs to make effective decisions about how to allocate the resources in a way that will enable the organization to reach its objectives. Resources must be optimized through careful study of all elements which should be considered as integral parts of comprehensive service. A well-balanced allocation of resources to the different unit, field measurements, sampling, analytical laboratories, etc., and all the components, facilities, and equipment personnel operational aspect is essential for successful program. Moreover, allocation of resources should allow for flexibility because occupational hygiene services may have to undergo adaptation in order to respond to the real needs, which should be periodically assessed. Communication, sharing, and collaboration are the keywords for successful teamwork and enhance individual capabilities. Effective mechanisms for communication within and outside the program are needed to ensure the required multidisciplinary approach for protection and promotion of workers' health. Communication, sharing, and collaboration is the keywords of successful teamwork because it allows everyone on the team to be educated on any topic that may affect their works. Moreover, it develops trust, build among the team members, boost morale, and help employees to stay engaged in the workplace. Especially, collaboration in the workplace is a sign of effective team as it harnesses the best of out two or more individuals together.
Management. Management involves decision making as the goal to achieve and action required to efficiently achieve these goals, with participation of concern as well as foreseeing and avoiding or recognizing and solving the problem which may create obstacle to the completion of the required task. It should be kept in mind that scientific knowledge is no assurance of the managerial competence required to run an efficient program. It is important to remember that scientific knowledge does not guarantee the managerial competence needed to run an effective program. Kasama sa pamamahala ang paggawa ng decision-making bilang layunin na makamit at kinakailangan ng pagkilos upang mahusay na makamit ang mga layunin ito, na kasama ang partisipasyon ng lahat ng mga partidong kasangkot. Quality assurance involving quality control and proficiency testing refers to primarily to activities which involve measurement. Although this concept have been more often considered in connection with analytical laboratories, their scope has to be extended to also encompass sampling and measurement. It is important to establish quality assurance program for occupational hygiene laboratories, and this refers to both internal quality control and external quality assessment. Although these concepts have been more frequently associated with analytical laboratories, their scope must be expanded to include sampling and measurement. Quality assurance, which includes quality control and proficiency testing, refers to primarily to activities that involve measurement. Para sa occupational hygiene laboratories, mahalagang ipatupad ang mga proseso ng pagtiyak ng kalidad na kinabibilangan ng parehong panloob at panlabas na kontrol sa kalidad. In quality assurance, we have concerning sampling or measurement with direct reading instrument, and concerning analytical laboratories, quality involves adequate and correct. And also, for both, it is indispensable to have. Concerning sampling or measurement with direct reading instrument, first is preliminary studies including the identification of possible hazard and the factors required for the design of the strategies. Second is the design of the sampling measurement strategies. Third is the selection and utilization of methodologies and equipment for sampling measurement according to both for the purpose of the investigation and for the quality requirements. Fourth is the performance of the procedures including the monitoring. And fifth is the handling, transport, and storage of sample, if the case. Concerning analytical laboratories, quality involves adequate and correct. First is design and installation of the facilities. Second is the selection and utilization of validated analytical methods. Third is the selection and installation of instrument. And fourth is the adequate supply, reagent reference sample, and etc. For both, it is indispensable to have. First is clear protocols, procedures, and written instruction. Second is routine calibration and maintenance of the equipment. Third is training and motivation of the staff to adequately perform the required procedures. Fourth is adequate management. Fifth is internal quality control. Sixth is external quality assessment or proficiency testing if applicable.